But next, that fur-free protest. Last week, a seal demonstration took place in Hyde Park in protest to the seal clubbing that's currently underway in Namibia. We look at the recent action taken by the man on the street in response to this and other cruelty to animals for the sake of fashion.
The Namibian government has given permission for 86,000 seals to be culled. This is something that doesn't happen anywhere else in the world.
Well, basically, a lot of people are uneducated about the way that fur is actually produced. So this is a fun and a sexy and provocative way to draw attention to a very serious message, and that is that if you do not support cruelty, you should not support fur.
They're being clubbed today. Baby seal cubs are being inhumanely, cruelly clubbed, so for people's vanity. So I'm here to try and put a stop to this horrific fashion.
There must be another way.
Because the more people that are aware, the more people are working together to stop this.
Something about seals in Namibia.
Boycott Namibia!
And you weren't aware of it?
Not at all. Wanneer die pels afgesny word, lewe die diere nog. Omdat dit vir die mense makliker is om die pels af te sny terwyl die diere nog lewe. So wat hulle doen, hulle maak die diere bewusteloos deur middel van hulle verwrig hulle of hulle slaan hulle oor die kop en terwyl hulle dan nog lewe, word die vel afgesny.
And I think it was Gandhi that said that you can judge a nation by the way it treats its animals.
Die emosies het werklik hoog geloop 'n paar die dag. En is jammer dat Namibia voortgaan met die wrede praktyk, ten spyte van al die sterk protes daarteen.
News just in is that some seals have moved across the border to an island called Ilha da Bahia dos Tigres, about 75 kilometers from the nearest settlement on the Angolan border. Over 17,000 adults have been recorded there, and to date it has produced over 4,400 pups.
After the break, we take a look at someone who works full-time trying to make a difference to the plight of the Cape Fur seal.
As the seal culling continues in Namibia, here in the harbours of the Cape, seals are continuously being strangled by floating plastic loops discarded by the fishing industry.
Francois Hugo van Hout en 2 Oseane Aquarium in Kaapstad werk onverpoost om verstrengelde robbe te bevry en om die owerhede sover te kry om stappe te neem om weg te doen met hierdie gebruik van plastieklisse in die vissersbedryf.
And it's up to us. Litha asks some simple questions and gets answers that just don't tie up.
Someone who has dedicated his life for the past 11 years to the protection of seals is Francois Hugo,
otherwise known as the Seal Man from Seal Alert in Hout Bay. His main focus is baby seals who have either lost their mother or their mother's had to some great distances to find food, but hasn't returned for days because of the growing fishing industry.
These are all 7-month-old pups. These will be the same age of pups that you will be clubbed in Namibia at the moment. Now Namibia is involved in a cull up there, and they kill 85,000 of these guys that you're actually handling right now.
Francois is like a surrogate parent to the young orphan seals. When they're old enough to be weaned, they are fully rehabilitated and strong enough to fend for themselves in the wild.
You deal with starvation as the #1 cause of their problems, and you can see that they'll all be suckling either on the bottle or on themselves. You'll see that one suckling there.
Yeah.
Now he's using his flippers for his mother's nipple. We found the only way to work with Cape Fur seals, because of their 12-month weaning period and nursing period, is to rehabilitate them in the wild. So from day one, when we bring them here, they're free to come and go as they would in any colony. And the intelligence of the animal is such that they respond to the care being given to them, and then they develop their abilities as they would on any wild colony. So we work in the wild from day one.
The other focus of Francois' work is freeing seals entangled in plastic strapping discarded into the sea, mainly by the tuna fishing industry and from bait boxes.
We probably see about 10 to 20 seals per day that are in this harbour swimming around entangled every single day. If you look around the harbour now, there's a seal up there that's got multiple entanglements around him, mutilations. There's one lying on the raft, and there's at least 1 or 2 in this group that's lying over here. You can see there's another guy on top there. You can see how tight it is around his neck.
Yeah.
You can see by the amount of damage that's done how fresh it is or how recent it was entangled. The more the wound is open, the longer the entanglement has been on him. If you come in here early in the morning, you could then go into a wetsuit and you could approach that raft and you could try and then hook that entanglement with a specially made knife, and you could then cut it while he's basically sleeping, and that's how you free them. So that's the method that we've developed to be the most successful. It's a non-capture method, it's not invasive to the animal, and it has the highest degree of success.
The strapping comes mainly from the tuna industry. The tuna are hung with plastic straps, which eventually end up floating in the water, where seals get themselves entangled in them. But it's not only in Hout Bay Harbour that this problem occurs.
We're talking about seals in harbours, which is only a very small percentage. The vast majority of seals are out on the islands, and the problem is you cannot approach into the colony and get to the entangled seals. So those seals are suffering in their wild and natural environment with no means of freeing them at all.
Thousands of people visit the Cape Town waterfront and Two Oceans Aquarium every day. And one of the main tourist attractions is the Cape Fur seals that are easily spotted next to the jetties. What they don't see is how badly these seals are being harmed by plastic pollution floating in the water. Every morning, Claire Taylor, assistant curator from the Two Oceans Aquarium, immerses herself in polluted water to find and release seals that have become entangled in plastic refuse.
See the one on the left, looks like more brown.
Yeah.
It's facing us. You can see it's like something a bit wet and stuff around its neck.
Oh yeah, I can see it.
If you look very carefully, you'll see a tiny little red knot that's sticking out. That's a piece of the raffia. Unfortunately, the bands that are extremely tight, you can't actually get them from the water or from the surface. You need to actually catch the animal. You have to catch the animal. We've got a big cone-shaped net, and you actually got to get this net over the seal, and they kind of wriggle their way to the front where they're stuck, and then be able to try and cut the band. And the really tight ones, you've actually got to feel through their fur just to try and find it, and your hands go into this big, horrible mess.
Unlike Francois and Hout Bay, the Two Oceans Aquarium was given a permit by Marine and Coastal Management to work with the seal entanglements. What is the solution to this problem?
There are a few legislations that have been put in place. I know the SPCA are also trying to get a few things passed, like if the box band's actually being attached to the bait box, where you've got to cut the band before it comes off the box. That would make a big difference.
The SPCA helps out at Cork Bay Harbour, where there is no full-time assistance for the seals, and they are only called out when a concerned member of the public reports an entangled seal.
We generally rely on the public with regards to entanglements, and it's a very variable thing. A lot of it depends on the season. Winter's quiet in general for everything. Not necessarily that there's no entanglements happening, it's just there's fewer people around to see it. So during the tourist seasons is when we get most of our calls, tourists visiting the harbours for the experience, and they notice the seals, and the first thing they do is call the SPCA. So we don't really do a proactive check for that. We just really rely on public for phoning us.
As with the Two Oceans Aquarium, the SPCA has a permit from Marine and Coastal Management to work with the seals, as they do here mainly at Cork Bay Harbour.
Cork Bay Harbour is an MCM harbour as well as Hout Bay. They don't really respond to much entanglements at these harbours. They generally give us a phone call and we'll come out and do it. We are permitted by MCM to deal with seals and seabirds.
From these three harbours, one can see that these seal entanglements are taking up a huge amount of time and effort every day from individuals to free these animals. Surely there should be a way to cut down on the amount of plastic strapping, cord and line used in the fishing industry. It is the Department of Environmental Affairs, Oceans and Coasts, formerly known as MCM, who are responsible for setting tuna long line permit conditions. So we wanted to ask them if they're prepared to look at sustainable solutions and alternatives to the methods used for hanging tuna.
Try to regulate the type of cords that are used, and this is a typical tuna cord which has now been cut, but it is a typical tuna cord that would have entangled a seal. In actual fact, this was on a seal. We're going to try and regulate that in the sense by determining how they can make these strops. We've got something like this, which would, if it did fall off or fall into the water, this would just, first of all, the openings of these little holes are far too small for a seal, but it will unwind and it'll fall in the water, and it will still be pollution, but it'll be better for the seals.
Also, with this whole thing with tying the knots at an 80mm interval, I have some plastic strapping over here, and I did actually try this, and it's quite hard to do it, and I should imagine that fishermen do have quite a lot of stuff to do. And also, the loops do come, the knots itself comes loose really easily. So, would you consider an alternative to this?
Litha, no, they wouldn't be allowed to use that. They won't be allowed to use that at all. They will have to use something. It's actually determined what material they may use, and we're talking about something like a cord in this kind of line, and it would have to be in the shape of either one like that or one like that where there are knots like that.
However, whether allowed to or not, the fishing industry is using this plastic strapping to hang tuna.
Plastic which I'm holding in my hand, we use to blast freeze tuna once it comes in off the vessels fresh. We basically take this looped piece of plastic and hook it around the tail of the tuna and feed it through, and the tuna will then hang by its tail up in the air.
Tuna is a high-value exported fish that's used for human consumption. If SABS were to test these cords that they use to tie the tuna tails that collect bacteria and blood and fish skin, would it be very healthy for the people that consume the tuna?
I don't think it breaks the surface of the skin at all. In fact, they've been doing it for donkey's years at the moment. They're using very similar strops like these and like those, so I don't think it's an issue.
The reason for the strapping is because of the thickness and the flatness of it as well. It holds onto the meat a lot better than it does than using a thin rope, where it actually tends to cut because of the weight of the tuna. It tends to cut into the meat, and sometimes we have the tails actually breaking off because it's being cut by the twine.
Francois has come up with what he believes is a more sustainable solution for hanging tuna, and would like fishermen to be involved in refining the design so that it best suits their needs.
Now, what we've suggested to MCM is just use something as simple as this, where it's got two simple hooks. It can still have the hooking effect. It can still hang the tuna up on the hook. And this is stainless steel and it's plastic coated, or you can get them with just plain stainless steel. Then at least it's more hygienic. And there's no, if it does get discarded or lost in the sea, then it sinks to the bottom and it can't entangle seals.
That is actually a pollution problem. So if it goes to the bottom, it's going to lie on the bottom. We would much prefer to see something that can be removed and will float most times or be removed eventually on the beaches.
So with that pollution, you're saying to me that you don't want this pollution at the bottom of the sea, but now there's this pollution on top, which the seals can get entangled in. Is there a way that you guys solve this pollution problem? Do you somehow clean it up? Is there something else that you could possibly think of or do to stop the seals getting entangled?
Fishermen are known for not being very, they do tend to throw things in the sea. So we discourage that kind of thing. We have shown these to the fishermen, and they have said that they don't really like this idea as such. It's costly.
It costs about R1 or R2 to produce, and the industry could be developed for disadvantaged communities to get involved in a small production.
If everybody just took the time and did their bit, it would make a vast difference. And I think a few people would be very interested in using it. It might also work out to be a cheaper alternative as well than having to use this plastic.
Another issue where there seems to be disagreement with MCM is that of a seal rescue license for Francois Hugo, similar to those that MCM have issued to the Two Oceans Aquarium and the SPCA.
Put in perspective, we were the first organisation in 1999 to apply for a seal rescue permit. At that point, the reply from MCM was that they are opposed to seal rescue and it's not part of their policy. And if they change their opinion on the policy to rescue seals, then they might consider our application but would look at other organisations.
Francois Hugo has told from a long time ago that he needs to apply for a permit. He has never applied for a permit. He has never in his entire existence applied for a permit.
I was the first person to apply for a seal rescue permit. This is the very first response that we got from government in 1999. Therefore, not be legal to set up a rehabilitation centre in South Africa, and I'm willing to approve such an initiative at this present time. There's another one, for example, in November 2000, where Sea Shepherd and myself proposed to Minister Vali Musa of the Minister of Environmental Affairs to set up rehabilitation centres that would be funded by overseas funding for the benefit of South Africa and its seals, and that application was denied. I've applied numerous times. Here's another example of one, Seal Alert Rescue and Rehabilitation, dated 11/1/2001.
What does the Department of Environmental Affairs, Oceans and Coasts see the solution to the problem of the entanglements?
I don't think, Litha, there's an overall solution. I think, as I say, one's got to attack the source of the problems. First of all, it's very difficult to change the mindset of the adults. We're trying to go for people like yourself, the youngsters of the world, because they're the ones that can change the world. And so we're working on that in terms of awareness programs. In terms of the fishermen, we're changing the regulations, as we've mentioned before, and we hope that that is going to solve that side of problems.
Experience with government is that they don't come from a welfare aspect, that they're not even coming from the humane society aspect, and they're just allowing this kind of abuse to go on, you know. And this has literally been going on for decades, and thousands of animals are entangled each year. Many are getting re-entangled, so the numbers are astronomical, and you know, there's only a limited number, I think it's about 3 or 4 people in the whole of South Africa that are trying to free seals on a part-time, you know, ad hoc basis, and literally you need an army of people out there trying to help the species what's going on. You know, the thing needs to be a lot more advanced in the way that they think about things, and this is one small, you know, aspect of mismanagement, in my opinion.
We'll keep trying to highlight the plight of our wildlife and keep you, the viewers, informed. That's our job.